Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema. Sit down, as you can see, we're chilling in my car, which means it's live reaction time, and considering it is a Thursday opening night, the Seaman was definitely at the movies, and he had a couple new ones to choose from, and he opted to go with the one he thought he'd have a bloody good time at. So stupid. And it definitely probably gave away the movie choice if you know what came out this weekend. So pull up a chair and take a seat. I'm fresh out the theater after seeing, of course, The Predator. And I tell you what, man, I did have a bloody good time with this movie. And it's upsetting that I walked out with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because the third act of this movie is really messy. And it just, the choices and decisions that were made in the third act, I just didn't think worked. There were a lot of things that happened. I was like, oh man, we did that, and that. And then you get this tease at the end that clearly is, hinting at a sequel, which that's starting to drive me nuts that movies keep doing this. Because the tease in this movie, if you would have inserted that into the third act, maybe this movie comes off better than I think it does, because it kind of ends flatter than I wanted it to. Although it does, it all plays well. And doesn't, there were a lot of reshoots apparently around the end of the movie. Possibly the entire end was reshot. And it's not that it feels out of place. The action and everything work and they fit in what we've been watching. It was just the choices and the decisions. It didn't make sense if you were going to lead to a sequel. That kind of bothered me. And I was kind of shocked that Shane Black kind of had a couple missteps with story elements and character arcs, things that he's usually really good at, and even structure stuff. Like the peak of the movie, I didn't think was the third act. I thought the best part of the movie actually came in a forest sequence where we get our first real predator action that we're familiar with. For the most part of the movie, the predators are unmasked, and I'm totally cool with it, because people have always said, why do you keep masking up these crazy looking aliens? Let the predator's face be out there. And it is throughout the movie. And let's flip into stuff that was done really well, because Shane Black does some really good things in this movie, and the Predator stuff is really well done. And the Predator moment, I thought, was in the forest, because the Super Predator has his mask on, so we're getting that thermal image stuff, which I was shocked there wasn't more of it, considering that the thermal image kind of played in the title card for a lot of the advertisements. But this forest sequence was all I needed, man. It actually got the suspense going, pulled me to the edge of my seat a little bit, where most of this movie I just thought played like big action and wasn't trying to build it like suspense horror sci-fi, but more just action sci-fi. And the forest sequence I thought was really solid as far as building the suspense and the stuff that was going on with the Predator. But the Predators across the board are awesome, and I love that Shane Black didn't waste any time. He didn't hold back. He didn't bury the lead. He didn't pull a Michael Bay, if you will. The first thing we see is Predator, space action, and then, we're starting right out the gates with the Predators, which I loved. And then, you can kind of get into your human stuff and play in, but the Predators are big bad way throughout the entire movie there, man. They're there, and they're in just fully, there in all their glory. And it's awesome. I like the regular Predator that we get at the beginning. I love the Super Predator. He is massive, man. They say something like 11 feet, and I don't know if it was the IMAX screen, but he felt like he was 11 stories. Just huge, but still fast, nimble, visceral. The violent action from both Predators in this movie is great. And I thought the R stuff played well in the movie. It wasn't over the top or used incorrectly. The gore and all the blood, I thought worked and felt natural. Even the language felt natural. Black was able to utilize the blood and some of the, the language and things to his advantage in some of the one-liners he spits, in particular a shot where he uses the blood to kind of give us an image that I'm like, oh wow, I really dug that and haven't seen that before. And I like that he was able to utilize all that around the Predators. I even like the Predator dogs, man. They do something to one of them that makes it super endearing, and every time this Predator dog pops up, it could have gotten old, but I dug it. I really enjoyed every time it happened. I was just like, oh man, it's so sweet. Which is strange to say, and you'll see why. But I dug all that, and I think the reason it works is because the visual effects are spectacular. I thought the green blood was dialed up a little too much, where it kind of felt, CGI'd or fake. But everything else, oh my God, man. From the CGI to the practical effects, all the special effects in this movie and visual effects in this movie are just great. And all this Predator stuff, phenomenal, man. They look so good. Then throw on top of that, this whole cast is actually really, really good. And look, there's a lot of really good people in this cast, but they all shine. Like, they're having a ton of fun on screen. That lets us have fun watching the movie, but that's not all it is. They give really good performances, starting with Boyd Holbrook, who I thought really delivered a solid leading performance. I thought he did a good job pulling off being like this military sniper who witnesses the first alien attack and kind of gets pulled in, doesn't want to play ball, so he gets thrown on this bus with all these mercenaries that are kind of in chains and all arrested, and you know, to kind of quiet him. And you know, he does that stuff really well. He plays really well with the loonies, as he calls them, and leads that group really well. I just thought he nailed the leading performance stuff, even to the point where the action is solid, and like the emotional beats where with Jacob Tremblay, who plays his son, played really well. Then Jacob Tremblay, oh my God, man, how good is this kid at acting? It doesn't matter if he's in an Oscar caliber film or if he's in a crazy sci-fi action flick. He delivers Oscar caliber performances every time he's on screen. And the fact that his character has Asperger's really allowed him to play and act and give a really solid performance in a way where if he didn't have, you know, something like that, he might have come off not as impressive. And it's not that the Asperger's is in there just to make sure Tremblay has something to do. It plays into the story, and actually plays quite well into the story, and gives Tremblay some really excellent moments throughout the entire film all the way up to the end. And I just loved everything he did. Olivia Munn, also brilliant. I thought it was some of the best stuff Olivia Munn's ever given us. She really comes off like she's a scientist that knows what she's talking about. Like, when she says things, you're like, that's a good point. Like, you believe, you buy into all of that stuff. Plus, you buy into the action. Now, I personally dug her in X-Men Apocalypse when she played Psylocke. Not everybody did, and there were a lot of things not to like in that movie, but she nailed the action, man. She held her own, and she nails it here. She does a really good job in her action sequences, and the thing she does best is hold her own in general. She's the lone female in this all-boys club and all these testosterone-driven, crazy mercenaries, and she fits right in. She could have very easily been, you know, the lone girl that kind of gets annoying or boring, and she never does. And you get that right from the get-go, man. She has an early interaction with, you know, different people from the group, drops 2 lines that as soon as she said them, I was like, oh, she deserves to be with this group. This is gonna work really, really well. And it did. She was excellent. On top of that, man, like I said, the mercenaries are all really good. They have really, really small roles, but they all bring really, really excellent performances. Trevante Rhodes, fantastic. Has great chemistry with Holbrook that allows for some really, really great scenes. And he has this wonderful, like, little relationship with Jacob Tremblay, where if you're watching the movie, it's minimal, right? It's very small and kind of in the background sometimes. Pay attention to the two of them. If they're ever together, they have these wonderful interactions. And Rhodes is just really good, man. He kills his action, and his just personality and vibe in the movie is just spectacular. I really thought he nailed it. Keegan-Michael Key. Look, I've mentioned one-liners with Olivia Munn, and Black has a lot of one-liners. I don't think they all work, but if they're coming out the mouth of Keegan-Michael Key, they all work all the time. And they're not all scripted, right? You can tell some of the ad-lib stuff that he drops in there. And that natural humor is just so natural. It plays wonderfully on screen. And he pulls off the mercenary stuff. And he's just so funny. It breaks up the action in a really nice way, where the whole mercenary group kind of feels Suicide Squad-ish if they were having like 10 times more fun than they had in their movie. And the other thing, too, Thomas Jane is great. He has a great relationship with Keegan-Michael Key, and he has Tourette's. So it allows some of the one-liners that didn't work come from him, but some of the really funny ones also come from him because of the ridiculous things that come out of his mouth. And the way everyone's able to play off of him worked really well. I just really dug his performance. And then, give me one sec, Augusto Aguilera, who plays Nettles. Oh man, like, didn't know who this guy was and just like really nailed his stuff. Every time he was on screen, I was like, oh, Nettles, I'm a Nettles fan. So I really dug that. And like I said, the whole mercenary group is just great. And then finally, last but certainly not least, man, Sterling K. Brown is brilliant as always. Hire this guy for everything. But in particular, look at him to be a villain, man. He has a bad guy like bit in this movie where you really don't like him at all, but but he also is super charming and funny and sarcastic, and you love him when he's doing that stuff. But he flips that switch, man, and gets super serious. He's badass, and he's kind of bad. And I dug it, man. Like, I would love to see Sterling K. Brown be a villain. Almost as much as I want to keep seeing Henry Cavill be a villain. Maybe someone should put those two together in a movie, both being bad guys. That would be maybe a Bond movie. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it would work because Sterling K. Brown is great at everything he does, and his character's over the top. But Black didn't like pull the reins in on him at all. He just kind of let him go, and he went for it, and going for it made that over the top stuff work. The quirks of his character work. His sarcastic humor works. Like, he'll chuckle at himself, and that makes you laugh even harder. He's just so much fun, so charismatic, so much energy. I just loved him in this movie. And ultimately, this movie, like I said, is a ton of fun. Yes, there's some script and plot problems, but ultimately, I got what I wanted, man. I got a ton of awesome Predator stuff, and I really kind of dug, ultimately, what we got with all that. So, there you go, man. I mean, I dug it so much. 11 minutes. That's absurd for a live reaction. But there was so much to talk about because, again, massive cast, and everybody nailed it. And the Predator stuff was great, and the visual effects, you know, despite the missteps, I thought it overcame those enough to enjoy the movie. So that's it, man. That's all the Seaman's got to say. I've emptied the tank. It is your turn. Hit those comments. Have you seen the movie? Let me know what you thought about the cast, about the movie itself, with what Black did, the Predator stuff. Let me know all that. You know, if you're going to drop spoilers, just let everyone know, but try to keep it spoiler-free. And if you haven't seen the movie, has the Seaman enticed you to want to go check it out? I hope so. It's a fairly good time, man. So that's it, man. Hit all those in the comments. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe, little bell. You get alerts every time I make a new video. For the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I'm the Seaman, and I'm signing off. Hey, still here, guys. Well, so is the Seaman, and I'm here to remind you that the fun doesn't have to stop. You can keep it going with just a couple clicks of a button. So make sure you check out videos either here or here. And if you're new and haven't done it yet, please hit that subscribe button over here.